Trump's dramatic nuclear dust claim collapses under scrutiny as independent experts reveal the complete story. A leading U.S. firm confirms Iran's uranium stockpiles remain fully intact despite America's latest airstrike campaign. Fact-check analysis thoroughly busts Trump's nuke story. Iran's critical nuclear material stays completely untouched? Trump's nuclear dust label gets widely mocked. Iran's uranium exists as stable gas, not pulverized debris. Independent watchdogs expose Trump's lie, revealing the stark reality of Iran's resilient uranium program. A US-based think tank has stepped in to fact-check President Donald Trump's claim that Iran's enriched uranium constitutes nuclear dust, offering a more technical explanation of the material in question. As reported by Al Jazeera, Daryl Kimball from the Arms Control Association said that the United Nations International Atomic Energy Agency will first need to establish a new baseline for Iran's uranium stockpile before any removal or verification plan can start. Kimball noted that experts will therefore have to physically return to Iranian nuclear sites for fresh inspections, since much of the available data may now be outdated or incomplete due to the war-related damage. He explained that around 200 kilograms of the estimated total 440 kilograms of enriched uranium is believed to be located near the Isfahan complex, a key node in Iran's nuclear program. The remaining stockpile is thought to be stored close to the heavily fortified Fordow Nuclear Facility, which is buried deep under a mountain and designed to withstand military strikes. However, due to structural damage sustained during recent attacks, these estimates cannot be fully trusted and require on-the-ground inspections to confirm the actual amount and location of the material. Kimball also pushed back against the president's description of the uranium as nuclear dust. Experts now clarify, this is not a loose, dispersed powder. The material in question is uranium hexafluoride, a highly controlled, volatile gas used in nuclear processes. Unlike powdered substances, this gas must be stored and handled in sealed systems under strict conditions. Daryl Kimball said, and I quote, "The material is likely in tunnels or could be buried under structures from the previous bombings, in what might look like scuba tanks. It is also a toxic material that has to be handled very carefully in order to remove it, or what we call downblend it to lower levels of uranium enrichment." Unquote. The scuba tank reference points to these cylindrical containers, which are built to withstand pressure and protect personnel from the hazardous gas inside. Any effort to neutralize the material would require a complex industrial process known as downblending, where highly enriched uranium is mixed with less enriched uranium or other isotopes to reduce its weapons-grade quality. In this process, the enriched uranium is diluted to lower, less weaponizable levels before being transferred for either long-term storage or civilian use, which is a slow and technically demanding operation. This technical assessment reinforces concerns that securing and processing Iran's enriched uranium stockpile could be both time-consuming and hazardous, rather than a simple case of seizing dust. Tensions are once again rippling through the Strait of Hormuz, as the battle for control over one of the world's most vital maritime choke points takes a dramatic new turn. A senior Iranian official has revealed that Tehran has now received its first revenue from the tolls it imposed on ships transiting the strait. Iran's Deputy Speaker of Parliament, Ahmadreza Hajibabei, says this initial payment has already been deposited into an account at the country's central bank, signaling that the new toll regime is not just policy on paper. Ahmadreza Hajibabei said, and I quote, "The first revenue received from the Strait of Hormuz tolls was deposited into the central bank account." Unquote. The announcement, first reported by Iran's Tasnim news agency, was quickly echoed across state-linked and domestic media outlets, amplifying the message that Iran is now monetizing its control over Hormuz. However, Iranian officials have offered no further clarity on how much money has been collected so far, or exactly how the tolls are being calculated and enforced on passing vessels. The Strait of Hormuz has been at the heart of the crisis since war erupted on February 28, transforming from a tense waterway into a central flashpoint in the US-Iran confrontation. Since then, Iran has sharply restricted maritime traffic, allowing only a limited number of carefully screened vessels to pass through the narrow channel. All this is happening in a corridor that carries roughly 1/5 of the world's oil and gas flows, meaning any disruption here sends shockwaves through global energy markets. Beyond oil and gas, the Strait of Hormuz also serves as a critical route for other essential commodities, linking producers and consumers across Asia, the Middle East, Europe, and beyond. In recent weeks, Tehran openly debated imposing tolls on ships, warning that shipping conditions in Hormuz would not return to pre-war normal levels anytime soon. On March 30th, a key parliamentary security commission signed off on the toll plan, even as it remained unclear when, or if, the full parliament would hold a formal vote to codify the measures. Yet, even as Iran quietly banks its first toll revenue, Trump declared that the United States was in complete control of the Strait of Hormuz, deepening the gap between American rhetoric and Iran's on-the-water reality. Despite the extension of the US-Iran truce, the maritime standoff between the two sides has intensified further, with American forces now seizing Iranian-linked tankers well beyond the Strait of Hormuz. On April 23, the US military seized a large crude carrier, MT Majestic, carrying Iranian crude in the Indian Ocean, marking one of the most significant intercepts of the Shadow Fleet campaign. US Attorney Jeanine Pirro stated that the seized ship, MT Majestic, carried approximately 1.9 million barrels of Iranian oil, reflecting the scale of Iran's maritime export network. Pirro also noted that the similarly seized tanker MT Tiffany, taken earlier in the week, also carried roughly 1.9 million barrels of Iranian crude, underscoring a pattern of high-volume captures. The location of the Majestic seizure was close to where the Tiffany was boarded earlier in the Indian Ocean, suggesting that US forces are focusing on a specific corridor used by Iran-linked tankers. Pirro added that her office has executed some of the nation's most complex seizure warrants, positioning these operations within a broader legal framework for targeting sanctions-busting vessels. The attorney also hinted at the earlier seizure of oil tankers carrying Venezuelan crude, including the ship's skipper, Bella 1, and Veronica. The US Department of War justified the operation as an effort to intercept ships that are alleged to be violating sanctions and supporting Iran's war-related revenue flows. These seizures form part of a wider American crackdown on Iran's so-called Shadow Fleet, a network of tankers that operate under false flags or limited identification to evade scrutiny. The broader aim is to squeeze Iran's oil revenues, which have long served as a critical source of funding for Tehran's military programs and regional activities. The US military has claimed that its blockade and interdiction measures have so far forced at least 33 ships to turn back or return to port while attempting to navigate the Strait of Hormuz area. The latest seizure of the Majestic came shortly after President Trump claimed total US control of the Strait of Hormuz and issued shoot-and-kill orders against vessels ignoring the blockade. Donald Trump said, and I quote, "Iran is having a very hard time figuring out who their leader is. They just don't know. The infighting is between the hardliners, who have been losing badly on the battlefield, and the moderates, who are not very moderate at all, but gaining respect, is crazy. We have total control over the Strait of Hormuz. No ship can enter or leave without the approval of the United States Navy. It is sealed up tight, until such time as Iran is able to make a deal." Unquote.